Good morning and welcome. Good morning. Look at all this stuff. I'm Stephanie Green, part of the festival organizing committee. And this year's festival is made possible by the very generous support of our festival sponsors: Brattleboro Community Television, Jenny Altschuler and Barry Green, Elizabeth Catlin, the Stepansky Family Trust, the Vermont Humanities Council, and poets and writers. We would also like to thank our advertisers, and we encourage you to support them. A little housekeeping note: Brattleboro has just changed its parking rules, and they are charging. If you just park downtown, they are charging. There's a long-term parking lot up above us on Grove Street that you can park for 10 hours. That's just a little unhappy housekeeping. The festival is run entirely by volunteers, but has very real expenses. So we encourage you to make a donation to one of the donation boxes sometime this weekend, or you can use the QR code to donate online through our website. After Drs. Painter and Miles speak, you can buy books at the back, and they will be signing over at the black table on the side there. Let's see. So please take a moment now to turn off the ringer of your cell phones, but feel free to use them to take photos and share them with us on social media. Okay. Dr. Nell Irvin Painter is a historian of American...
You can call me Nell.
Nell is a historian of American history and the author of 9 books, notably The History of White People and Old in Art School. She's retired from Princeton University as the Edwards Professor of American History Emerita and has served as president of the Organization of American Historians and as president of the Southern Historical Association. She was appointed as chair of the McDowell Board of Directors in 2020 and is a recipient of the 2025 Arts and Letters Awards in Literature from the American Academy of Arts and Letters. Raised in Oakland, Painter attended the Oakland Public Schools. She earned her BA in anthropology from UC Berkeley in 1964. During her undergraduate years, During her undergraduate years, she studied medieval history at the University of Bordeaux, France. As a postgraduate, she studied abroad at the Institute of African Studies at the University of Ghana. In 1967, she completed an MA at UCLA, and she earned her MA and PhD at Harvard. After her retirement from Princeton...
That's okay.
No. I just have to say that she went to art school.
Okay.
And got an MFA at RISD. All right. Okay. Dr. Painter's most recent book is I Just Keep Talking, A Life in Essays. It's truly a delightful read full of surprises, spanning subjects from writers putting words in Sojourner Truth's mouth. She did not say, "Ain't I a woman?" To attending art school at 64. So she's a master at teasing out the truth from oversimplified histories. We are so grateful that she has enlarged our world. And if they could sit down, that would be great. All right, now onward to Dr. Tiya Miles is the Michael Garvey Professor of History, Radcliffe Alumni Professor, and Director of the Charles Warren Center for Studies in American History at Harvard. A writer of history as well as fiction, Miles is also a public historian who's engaged in several collaborations with historic site and museum professionals and with community members. Miles is a recipient of the MacArthur Foundation Fellowship, the Genius Award, and the Haidt Prize in Humanities, as well as fellowships from the National Endowment for the Humanities and Mellon Foundation. Her book, All That She Carried, Journey of Ashley Sack, A Black Family Keepsake was a New York Times bestseller that won the 2021 National Book Award for Nonfiction. The Pen, yay! Such a great book, such a great book. The PEN America John Kenneth Galbraith Award for Nonfiction, and Phi Beta Kappa Ralph Waldo Emerson. I kind of went on, I'm sorry. Let's see. Oh, but they're great awards. Award for Nonfiction, and additional prizes from the American Historical Society and Organization of American Historians. All That She Carried was named Best Book of the Year by the New York Times, Washington Post, Boston Globe. You get the picture. It's a great book. Dr. Miles will be reading from her newest book, Night Flyer, Harriet Tubman and the Faith Dreams of a Free People. With lyrical writing, Miles teases, we love applause, teases out the truth from biased coverage, legend, and fragmented facts to create a moving portrait of Tubman and other faith-based Black abolitionists. Night Flyer examines Harriet Tubman's spirituality and deep relationship to the ecosystems she must traverse as she leads people north to freedom. Please give both wonderful professors a warm, warm welcome. And now I'll shut up. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay. They're an unruly group. Aren't they?
Really? Wow.
Are these mics actually picking up our voices?
Jason, how's it going back there? Are these picking up?
Okay, let's see.
Yeah, you want some help with this?
Got it. Can you hear me? Yeah, that sounds good. All right.
You brought it way down, let's see.
These days you have to put the mic in your mouth.
Nearly so. Okay, oh, that's different.
Yeah.
You can hear me. Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Well, may I begin?
Please.
We are being told to call Dr. Painter Nell, and I'm going to try very hard to do that. But it is a challenge for me. I want to tell you all how honored I am that the Brattleboro Literary Festival has enabled me to share space with Dr. Painter, with Nell in this way. I have admired her for so long. Ever since graduate school, when I was introduced to her work, Exodusters. And I've had many friends and colleagues who studied with her, and I always looked at them with envy, thinking, wow, you got to be, right under the wing of Nell Painter. And now I feel like I'm under her wing too, because she was the chair of the National Book Award Committee that actually awarded the prize to All That She Carried in 2021. And I felt so seen by her in that moment, and I will be forever grateful for the example she has set of a Black woman who can be a deeply thoughtful and astute intellectual, who can be so present for us in our world, and who can also set the example of what it means and what it is to reinvent oneself. I mean, going to art school, becoming an artist, I cannot keep up with this woman. I'm trying. I don't know if you can tell, I'm trying. But there's just no way. And I had to say that. I'm thrilled to be here. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 50 minutes, but for me, it almost doesn't even matter because I'm sitting up here with Nell Painter.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Tiya. I am a great admirer of Tiya's work, and I was so happy that my colleagues on the jury agreed with me on the stunning achievement of All That She Carried. I just want to say like 2 sentences about that book. What Tiya did there was layer a history that was material, that was chronological, that was geographical, it was a family history. It did so much, and it showed how we can write history now. And I have found that very encouraging. I'll talk to you later on about the book I'm writing at the moment. I'm writing another book on Sojourner Truth. And Tiya's work of bringing all these layers to bear in a book, well, in a biography, has been very inspiring and helpful to me.
Thank you. So we emailed about the idea that we might each read a little bit of our new books to you. Does that sound okay? Yeah. All right. So Dr. Painter, who goes first?
I'll go first. I'm the oldest. And I wrote a book called Old in Art School. And I put old in the title. My mother actually had, she published her own memoir, which was called I Hope I Look That Good When I'm That Old. And so she let me use old in a title. And I'm just going to carry on here for just a little bit.
Yes,
but,
please.
when that book came out, it was launched at the New York Public Library. And I was very full of myself. I just keep talking. And it was a wonderful audience like you. It kind of looked like you, too. And I said, Sarah Lewis was talking to me. We're talking back and forth. And we talked about, I think getting old is really emancipatory. And there are a lot of good things. I mean, getting old is a big job, but there are lots of good things that come, like talking about bullshit as bullshit. So I'm carrying on about the great things about being old. And I said, what I wanted to do with Old in Art School was give old people permission to say, as James Brown said, say it loud, I'm old and I'm proud. Like he said, you remember, he said, say it loud, I'm black and I'm proud. And they were so warm. I said, do you want to do that? And they said, yes. So I said, okay, first we're going to say it loud, I'm old and I'm proud. Ready? Do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Say
it loud.
I'm black. No. You are a step ahead of the New Yorkers. So first we have to say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud. Okay?
Okay.
Say it loud. I'm black and I'm proud.
But I think you're going to be able to say just as loud, say it loud, I'm old and I'm proud. Can you do it?
Yeah. Say it loud. I'm old and I'm proud.
But I have to tell you, the New Yorkers were very loud with black, and they mumbled. Okay. What I'd like to read to you is just the very beginning of I Just Keep Talking. Introduction, Ego Eastwell. It's a good thing I didn't die young. Meaning it's a good thing for my reputation that I didn't die during the full-blown era of white male default segregation, discrimination, and disappearance that wound down only yesterday. I wrote this in 2022. I would have disappeared from memory, just another forgotten Black woman scholar, invisible to history and to historiography. So much in me, a dark-skinned Black woman, always very smart, born in Houston in the Houston Hospital for Negroes in 1942, was suited for disregard. No family drama. My parents were married. They stayed married in as good a heterosexual marriage as Americans born in 1917 and 1919 could have, and that lasted 72 years until my mother's death. We were never poor, though never rich, and physical violence and addiction played no part in my family. My parents supported me emotionally and materially for more than 40 years. There's not much there in my life to match what my country likes to recognize as a Black narrative of hurt. I remember speaking about Olden Art School in Seattle to a wonderful, warm audience, largely of women. A questioner asked me what I do for healing. Nothing, I said. I'm not broken. Not broken, but on occasion frustrated, indignant, self-righteously, pissed off with cause, often exhausted, but mostly am permanently grateful for the people who have protected me, mentored me, supported me over so many decades. Without you, there would be no me. My Blackness isn't broken. It faces a different way. Mine is a Blackness of solidarity, a community, a connectedness to other people who aren't known personally, of seeing myself as part of other people, other Black people. My Blackness also brings with it an understanding of how other people see oneself, a seeing that can be hurtful, but not one's own fault. What W.E.B. Du Bois called two-ness is not merely an exhausting from the inside, from the outside identity, but also an ability to understand more than one way of seeing oneself in the world, an awareness that some non-Black people lack. The history of that seeingness brings with it strategies, its armor, usually communal, for fending off hurt. Those strategies of protection aren't always as robust as society's strategies of meanness, which are legal, financial, and personal. But ours are better than nothing, better than going into a cruel world naked and unarmored. I wish other Americans weren't so wedded to an individualist identity, that they would understand themselves more as connected to other people, locally and nationally, and less with having to do with guns and not caring how one's behavior endangers other people. I wish we had more solidarity, even if that makes me sound like a socialist. And then at the very end, coda. Readers are amused by this book's title for its forthrightness, and also as though the terms of my persistence, just keep, were a sort of non-dit. Do you know what non-dit is in French? Some people say yes, some people say no. So there are things that everybody can see, but you don't want to talk about. So non-dit, don't talk about it. Where am I? Were a sort of non-dit, as though they gestured toward an unspoken and perhaps inadmissible predicate, whether or not you're listening, or even if you're not paying attention. To be confessional, I have to admit, for a long time, for decades, the predicate was just. I did just keep talking, even when it felt as though I were just talking to myself.
I appreciated that so much. It's a reminder to me about how I think in many of our lives, or maybe in all of our lives, we try to say things, we try to do things, we think sometimes what we're saying or doing is really small, and maybe nobody's listening, maybe nobody's noticing, maybe there's not going to be any positive consequences. But there are actually people out there, events out there that are affected by what we do. So if Dr. Painter thought sometimes she was just talking to herself, of course we know as her listeners, her readers, people who've had a chance to learn from her, that she was actually talking to thousands and hundreds of thousands of people. So to me, that is reassuring. So I'm going to read from the first pages of Night Flyer, which is my latest book. And I think there's a connection here about Black women persisting in contexts of adversity, in situations where they feel like there may not be hope. So of course, the time difference is huge because my book is about Harriet Tubman, but I think some of the values and principles carry over between these different experiences. I want to share with you, just for a moment, how it is that I came to write a book about Harriet Tubman, because it wasn't something that I had ever really planned to do. But two different ideas or opportunities converged that led me to work on this book in the last handful of years. One was I had been really interested in Black history and environmental history ever since the period right before Hurricane Katrina, when a colleague of mine who is an environmental sociologist said that she feels that Black studies is doing a disservice to Black people by not paying more attention to the environment. She said this, and then a few months later, Hurricane Katrina happened, and I thought, oh my goodness, she was right, and what can we do to encourage each other to be much more aware and conscious of the interrelationship between people's lives, communities, and the natural world. So I started thinking about Harriet Tubman then because this professor, a colleague, whose name was Dorceta Taylor, mentioned Harriet Tubman as an example of environmentally conscious figures in Black history. And then fast forward to a few years ago, I had a chance to pitch a biography for a new series of biographies on Black intellectuals and artists that was going to be coming out from Penguin. And I pitched Harriet Tubman with the idea that I'd like to write about her as an environmental figure, thinking that they wouldn't go for it because she was way earlier than anybody else that they had in mind for the series. And I was actually putting somewhat of a narrow framework on it by thinking about the environment. But they said yes. And so I had an opportunity to write about African American history, Black women's history, and the natural world through the figure of Harriet Tubman. But as I got going with the research on this book, I was really surprised, and surprised by a lot of things that maybe we can talk about later in the discussion, Q&A portion if you'd like to. But the main thing that surprised me was something that maybe I should have already known, and that is that Harriet Tubman was a deeply religious, deeply spiritual person. I mean, I knew, and I'm sure many of you all knew that, she prayed, she sang songs that were religious, but many of these details about her life had come to me as a part of a stock caricature of her. Yeah. I never really gave these different elements much thought, but when I was doing the research for this, what I thought was going to be an environmentally focused biography, I kept encountering faith, religion, spirituality in all the sources about her life. And I realized that I was actually going to have to adjust my plan for this book because the sources were telling me that Harriet Tubman's sense of relationship with her God was the most important thing to her. This was the aspect of her life that grounded her, and that her relationship to the natural world was actually channeled through her sense of God's presence. So when she was attempting to escape, at first with her brothers, then by herself, and then helping many others to escape enslavement in the woods, and when she turned to features of nature, like trees or waterways or plants, for aid, the sources seem to be saying that the way she interpreted that was through a religious or spiritual lens. That is, if the trees were helping her, that was actually God providing her help by way of the trees, and so on. And so I ended up writing Night Flyer as what I describe as an eco-spiritual biography. It became much more than an environmentally focused book, though I think that is really important. And if it had been that, I think I would have been happy with that as well. But it also became a spiritual exploration of Harriet Tubman, which I think allowed me to get much closer to her than I otherwise would. Which is not to say that I got extremely close to her. I couldn't, and that frustrated me so much when I was doing this research. I was actually talking to a friend of mine and saying, I went down to where Harriet Tubman was born. I walked the places she walked. Why can't I reach her? Why can't I feel her? And my friend, who's a very wise woman, just looked at me and said, they couldn't catch her then. What makes you think that you're going to catch her now?
Yeah.
So I had to develop kind of a healthy respect for Harriet Tubman's maybe sense of privacy, for her autonomy, for her independence from people in her own time, but also from those of us researchers and writers who would like to get to know her. But I did feel I came closer anyway, perhaps halfway toward getting a better sense of who she was by being open to the importance of religion in her life. So that led me to write a totally different book than I expected to write. It's a book in which I took up a topic that was a little bit uncomfortable for me, thinking about spirituality and religion. Much like, I'll just throw in here that when I was working on All That She Carried, thinking about love was so uncomfortable for me as a theme. It just, at that time with that book, All That She Carried, it felt like love was too obvious and too basic a thing to be writing about. And yet that was the thing that held this family of Black enslaved women and girls together, even despite trauma. So in this book, I tried to, I guess, maybe embrace spirituality. And in order to prepare readers for that, I tried to set a mood or set a tone in the beginning that would let people know that this was not going to be an ordinary biography. So that was a very, I guess, longer than I intended introduction to the first few pages that I want to read to you from Night Flyer. And these pages set up the book. They include poetry, verse, kind of lyrical verse, and ideas from other people, mostly, that bring together religion and nature. So the book begins with something that I call a provocation. And these are some lines that come from Cole Arthur Riley, who has an Instagram platform called Black Liturgies, which is very beautiful. It's Black Liturgies. I see nods and people have read it. So I drew these words from Cole Arthur Riley. These are the first words of Night Flyer. Let us grasp the staffs of our past, believing in their power even now, that we would be a people who meet desperation and sorrow with a remembrance that protects us from despair. When I read that, it spoke to me about what I thought a book about Harriet Tubman might be able to do in our time. Because again, this was just in the last handful of years that I was working on this book, and I was thinking a lot about climate change, but also about political emergency. It wasn't as clear then, I think, as it is now, but I think we could see some signs. And what I really appreciated about these lines from Cole Arthur Riley was the notion of the past being graspable and of the past being like a staff, something that we could hold on to and get our grounding with, and that we could imagine and relate to as a source of power and strength. And Riley talks here about how if we can grasp this staff of our past, we can then remember, and that remembrance can help to protect us from despair. That is very much at least one of the essences that I hope is conveyed in Night Flyer. That if we turn back to the past, if we grasp onto it, we can remember, and we can gain some kind of a buffer or protection from a sense of despair. Because if Harriet Tubman didn't despair, why should we? So I'm going to read a few more lines before I turn this back over to Nell. And these are lines that I wrote, I think inspired by Riley. I don't know what they are. They're not really a poem. There's some lines of prose, very short at the beginning of the book. I wrote, "Ours is the time of the seventh trouble, but we do not wait in these woods alone. Harriet walked this way before, showing us how the wilderness works. She could have leaned against that tree. She would have pointed out that star. She could have sketched a map in the dirt and bid us memorize it. Then she might have whispered a secret that the trees already knew. We can be a flock alighting. If we join hands, we will fly." So those words, inspired in part by Riley's sense of grasping the staffs of our past, speak to many of the themes and events that actually come up in Night Flyer. The first line, that ours is the time of the seventh trouble, is a reference to many examples we have of Harriet Tubman being in moments of crisis and praying and saying, "Lord, you have brought me through 6 troubles. Don't let me down in the 7th." So the 7th trouble is the present current emergency. And then the reference to Harriet walking this way before us, showing us how the wilderness works, has a few different meanings, and two of the most important ones there are that the wilderness for her was the actual wilderness, the actual woods, the actual natural world that she had to navigate in order to get free and help other people get free. It was dangerous, but it was also a source of power for her that she accessed through prayer and through knowledge that she gained from her father and other teachers about how to survive in the woods. But the wilderness was also a spiritual place for Tubman. And in the book, I look back at early Black Christian traditions and the ways in which the wilderness was a secret place where people could go and pray when they weren't allowed to because of the rules and the punishments of their enslavers. And we also look at how the wilderness was a psychological, kind of a psychic space. And I see nods. This is, I think, a common interpretation and experience for people who identify as Christians, that it's a psychic space of testing and trial where the people of God, as Tubman would have thought of it, are having to face adversity in a way to kind of learn what they're capable of, learn what they're made of, and see how it is that they can rely on the God of their belief. So the reference to the wilderness here has those meanings and more. And I'm saying that Tubman believed in these different layers of wilderness. She learned how to navigate them. The physical world, the secret spaces, the tests and the trials, and the ways toward a spiritual strength that can help aid her and others through adversity. And I'm encouraging us in these lines to look to her example and to imagine her walking with us through this 7th trouble, through this wilderness, and showing us how to make a map. So I'm going to stop there. Thank you so much for your attention. So I wonder if I could ask you a question now. I've been thinking so much in recent weeks, months, especially with, frankly, the the attacks, the assaults on higher education, on universities, about what the purpose of intellectual work, even artistic work, is now, what it might offer us in this moment. And I know it's a big question and I'm springing it on you, but I would love to know
Sure.
what you think about that.
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, thanks for those pages from Night Flyer. I had the great honor of reviewing it for the Washington Post. And so I'm not going to buy it right now. But I have read it and enjoyed it. Yeah. I've heard that question not as broadly as you phrased it, but in terms of visual artists. And I don't think I want to prescribe what artists or writers, all of us, should be doing. But at the same time, I think there's a special power of art. And here, when I say art, I also mean the literary arts, the work of imagination. And let me just make a footnote right here, that for me, Black history is not the history of lynching and discrimination. That is American history. Black history is what Black people have made, said, created. So early in this century, I wrote a narrative history of Black people, Black Americans, and I called it Creating Black Americans, because creation is crucial for me in the definition of our people. So, but at the same time, I know that there are visual artists and literary artists who write, say, inspired by the power of the Holy Spirit, or whose eyes are trained on another world, or I'm writing on Sojourner Truth right now, who spent much of her time as an Adventist. So she was waiting, expecting the second coming, the world to end. And she, with lots and lots of Americans, millions of Americans, take their cues for how to live and what's going to happen from Revelation. I don't think we do. And I would not ask another artist or writer to take their cues from Revelation. But I think being engaged, on the one hand, in the world, the solidarity that we have both mentioned, the usefulness, not just the ethics of solidarity, but the usefulness of solidarity, and to doing something in the world. I would like writers, I would like artists to make that, if not all of their work, certainly part of their work as citizens. So let me just stop here with last June at McDowell's Medal Day. We talked a lot about citizenship and speaking truth to power. And I ended my remarks by saying that artists can make their own contribution to bettering our world, which, geez, does it need bettering, as artists. But for me, they also need to make their contribution as citizens.
Mm-hmm. And may I ask, what does that mean to you, making your contribution as citizens in addition to?
How many times have I been out in the street holding up my sign?
Okay.
I made my sign and it says, no! That's part of it. And at my advanced stage, that's about all I can do. I can't run for office, for instance. I can vote. I can urge other people to vote. My husband and I wrote by hand 200 postcards to Virginia to encourage people to vote.
Wow.
Vote for leaders you can trust. Now, in the book that I'm working on with Sojourner Truth, it's in the same series as yours, which gives us a little more leeway because these are books for a general audience. And for me, it means that not only am I writing inspired by Tiya's layered approach, but also I can put my own art in it. And so Sojourner Truth has been really an inspiring figure, and she remains an inspiring figure, but not because she said, aren't I a woman or ain't I a woman? She did not say. The title of my book is Sojourner Truth Was a New Yorker, and she didn't say that. How many of you knew Sojourner Truth was a New Yorker? 1, 2, 3, 4. How many of you thought she was from the South? The wrongs have it. Yeah.
What's funny, even though I knew she was from New York, you're saying she was a New Yorker?
Yeah.
Opens that up in a totally different way.
Yeah. So Sojourner Truth, Isabella, was born in the Hudson Valley in Ulster County, and she was born enslaved. And the first chapter of my book has her literally being born, emerging from her mother's cervix in Ulster County, New York. Then she self-emancipated a little bit before 1827, which was official emancipation in New York State. She went to New York City like so many country people from New Jersey and New York and New England to the bustling terminus of the Erie Canal. And she lived in New York City from 1826 until 1843. So she really was a New Yorker. I forgot why I was telling you that.
I asked about her. Well, I think I said that I never thought of her as a New Yorker.
Yeah,
Emphasis
that's
on
right.
that last
So she
syllable.
was a New Yorker, and she was an NYS New Yorker and an NYC New Yorker. But I will tell you, you won't have to buy my book, because I'm going to tell you the point. The point is that my Sojourner Truth, she drew strength from the power of the Holy Spirit, from Jesus, from the assumption, the hope that this is going to end and there will be a judgment. That part she had in common with many, many other Americans, and probably 99% of Black Americans. My Sojourner Truth is a self-published author of an as told to autobiography. Some of you liked my shirt, and I told you that this is my book tour jacket. Sojourner Truth was on a book tour when she went to Akron, Ohio, and she sold her book. She had access to a spread out market of feminist and anti-slavery people who were meeting, especially in the 1850s, but this started in the 40s. So there was a network that she could use, she could draw on to publicize and distribute the book that she had published. So she becomes a figure in the literary history of the North. She was not the only self-published author. She was not the only person going around selling her books. But I want you to imagine, I don't have her coming to Vermont, but she spent a lot of time in Massachusetts. And then as the 50s went on, she moved to the West and she ended up in Michigan. So, but this whole world of the antebellum North was a literary marketplace in which Black Northerners, even if they couldn't read and write as she did, they lived in a literary world in which newspapers and books and talking about print were of great importance. My role in life right now is taking antebellum history out of the clutches of the South.
Right. That is so interesting what you just said. I mean, various aspects of it. I will be eager to read your next book on truth and to be able to think about and compare your different biographies, since this will be the second time that you've written
That's
a
right.
book
That's
about
right.
Sojourner Truth.
She's changed.
She's changed. She's changed in
Yeah.
the way that you conceive
Yeah.
of her.
Yeah. The first book, Sojourner Truth, A Life of Symbols, second edition last year, came out in 1996. And in 1996, at the turn of the 21st century, there were 3 scholarly biographies of Sojourner Truth. The first one was by Carlton Mabie in 1993, I think. Then there was mine in 96, and then Margaret Washington's great achievement of research. I mean, this is a really big book. It's from 2007, 2005 or so. And Margaret did all the research. And she called her book Sojourner Truth's America. And that's what it is. So, you know, all 3 of us showed in our different ways that the journalist, Frances Dana Gage, made up Aren't I a Woman, which the 20th century changed into Ain't I a Woman to Southernize it. 12 years after Sojourner Truth spoke up in Akron, we all 3 said that. Did anybody listen to us? No. So this, people still, yeah. So that was, Sojourner Truth. We said that at the turn of the 21st century. Nowadays, I see that people are pushing back. So that's one thing. And what really showed me that Sojourner Truth had changed was in 2022, when national news discovered that Sojourner Truth had used the law to get her son back, who had been trafficked to Alabama. Some of you may remember that. It was a big story because the actual physical documents had been found in the archives. And what I said on O'Donnell's show then was, yes, this was news in the 19th century when it happened, but for me, the bigger news that it was news now. That what Sojourner Truth did with the law in 2022 was national news. Never would have happened in the 20th century.
Now, I wonder, listening to you talk about your first book on truth and projecting forward to the next book on truth, how you would say that your approach to thinking about or writing history has changed over the course of your career. I mean, you've told us that you're going to be including your art in this next one, which is incredible.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe a little more about that, and just also, do you approach your work differently, or do you write differently?
How long do you have?
We got some time.
I will just say a lot. And in this book, it includes my art, and this inspirational piece of art here, this is my work, one of my many self-portraits. So I can put my art in my work. And how many of you are writers? Oh, we got a lot of people here. Okay. I'll give you some advice if you want to put images in your books. So in 2018, I published Old in Art School with a small publisher in Berkeley, Counterpoint. And I wanted, since I was talking about art school, I wanted to show my work in progress, how my work changed as I grew and learned stuff and all that. And Counterpoint, this little publisher in Berkeley, said, okay. And in this book from a little publisher in Berkeley, you will find my art throughout in full color where it belongs. It's not just stuck in an insert. So when it came time to contract this book, I Just Keep Talking, I said to my editor, I want to put art throughout full color. He said, oh, no, we can't do that. The book will cost $40. Nobody will buy it. It's too expensive. We can't do it. And I said, well, if Counterpoint could do it, why can't you do it? You go ask your graphics people. And it turns out that he was working on old knowledge. The graphics people could do it. This book has full color throughout. It weighs a ton because it has very good paper, and it will never be in paperback because it needs that paper. So then when it came time to sign a contract for Sojourner Truth was a New Yorker, I said, I want to put illustrations through. I said, oh, no, we can't do that. The book will cost $40. Nobody will buy it. I said, go ask your graphics people. And of course, the graphics people said, sure, we could do it. So go ask your graphics people.
Right. That is a great tip. I'm definitely going to take that one away from this conversation. So I have another question that is, I don't know, maybe a little bit unfair because it's big. But here we are in this moment together. You know, this is my chance. You're working on Sojourner Truth. And I think it's safe to say that you know her well as you can from somebody across the distance of time.
Margaret Washington knows her better.
Okay, Margaret Washington, then maybe for another conversation.
Yeah.
But I would love to know your thoughts on truth in this moment and what's happening in this country with truth, your kind of analysis of that and what you think any of us can do. There were lots of people who raised their hands when you asked if there were writers in the space in response to what's happening to truth.
People used to ask me if I liked Sojourner Truth or if she would like me. And the answer in both cases is no. Sojourner Truth was a Black woman born in 1797. She did not read and write. She lived in a profoundly white supremacist country. And one of the reasons we know about her is she spent a lot of time as an activist with a lot of white people. And she was very religious. I am not. And you and I live in a world in which the encounter with a Black woman isn't automatically a turnoff, isn't automatically a turning away, isn't automatically a forgetting, a silence, and ignorance. She lived in a world in which other Black women, I mean, one of the things I'm doing is showing the other Black women who were in her world, but they did not have the luxury of sisterhood that we have because we live in a less grasping, holding, gripping white supremacy. So I'm not sure if I could get into one of her spaces that she would be able to see me. And if she were in one of my spaces, I think I would have been bored with all the religion.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's a surprise, and interestingly so. I mean, the way that you took your response to that question leads me to want to share something about Tubman, which
Please.
might be a little bit in a similar vein. And I want to preface it by saying that I came to respect and regard Tubman in ways that I would not have expected when I started this project. I mean, I feel like I was one of these kids who, grew up with Tubman being on the elementary school wall at Black History Month, and we saw her picture all the time, and she was just a person who we knew was a hero, right? Mm-hmm. But I didn't think much about her or what that meant or about any depth in relation to that. Working on this book allowed me to see depth and allowed me to recognize and accept for myself, actually, yes, she was a tremendous person. She did things that I can't imagine anybody else being able to conceive of and carry out. She did those.
Let me just say
Yes.
that I respect that in Sojourner Truth also.
Yes.
But we live in different worlds in different times.
We do, yes, and that was what I was going to pivot to. The reason why she could do these things is because she was, I don't mean this in a pejorative way, but she was a religious fanatic. I mean, she was completely consumed by, subsumed within her religious faith. And she felt that God was guiding her, giving her information, telling her what choices to make. And she reported, and people reported around her, that the decisions weren't wrong. So perhaps God really was with her. But looking at, and I'm not here to contest that. I wasn't there, and I don't have a direct line to God in the way that she did. So I can't test that out.
Yeah.
But I will say that reading these stories from a distance, it looked to me very much like Tubman's fervent faith put her in not only great and grave danger, but also wore her down physically and psychologically. I mean, she had moments when she was sick. She had a chronic disability. She would give the clothes off her back, all the way down to her underwear, you all, to people who were in need. She would be trudging for mile upon mile in terrible conditions when it came to the weather. She'd arrive at the next safe house, barely able to function because she was so sick and exhausted.
Yeah.
And she kept doing it because what she said was, when the Lord's ready, the Lord will take me. So her approach was, I'm going to listen to this voice. I'm not going to question it. It doesn't matter how much I'm worn down. Mm-hmm. And when it's time for me to go, when God's done with me, God will take me. That's it. I guess I have some questions. I have some concerns about that kind of an approach to living a life, where you're willing to wear yourself down, give yourself up, lose your own life because of a belief in a relationship that.
A supernatural one.
Thank you. A supernatural relationship that, for her, it seems to have worked out. But I don't know that it would work out for everybody, and that I would want to advise it for everybody.
Well, let me add the word historicity here, though, because, historicity. That part of what I push against in our culture is using a "the" with the Black experience. And what that "the" way of thinking does is smash us all together, including across our spirituality or lack of it, and across chronology. So we can ask, what would Sojourner Truth do? And without irony. Whereas for me, Sojourner Truth belongs firmly in the 19th
In her
century.
time.
And I want to respect, as you have done, our subject's spirituality, which was real and empowering. And also their force, their historical force, their ability to change history. We need to respect that. We do respect that. Without making them a next door neighbor or a sister or the woman you have a beer with. No, red wine.
Thank you so much. You're amazing. And does anyone have a few questions? We're still on the clock, alas. You're wonderful. All right, first of all. You enlarge our world, and it's just wonderful. Any questions before we move on to book sales? Yeah, you're going to have to hop over to the side mics or yell your head off, whichever you want to do. And stand up so we can hear you. Okay. Loud.
Tubman is the sketch version is so well known to all of its great, like in the 60s, grade school in Minnesota, I learned sketch version of Tubman.
I'm going to repeat the question, I think, because I can hear it.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Or you go to the mic. Okay. No, all right, I'll repeat it.
Why do you think it's taken so long to get beyond the sketch version?
Okay. The excellent question is, we all are aware of the sketch version, and many of us have embraced it. Why did it take so long to get beyond that version? Okay.
Well, thank you very much for that question. I'm going to follow in the vein that Nell laid out when talking about the different biographies of Sojourner Truth, and say there are excellent biographies of Harriet Tubman that were written about 25 years-ish ago. Kate Larson and Catherine Clinton are two of the authors of some of those biographies. And these books did get at some of the layered and complicated dimensions of her personality and of her actions. So I don't think that, let me rephrase that. It is not the case that my book is the first effort to break her out of that myth. We've been trying, many of us have been trying to break her out of that over time in different ways. I think what's different about my book is that I focus so much on the environment and the spiritual piece, because that is where the sources led me. But I also think that those dimensions might make it a little more accessible for people reading about her to see how she was a real person. Because in the natural world, she was somebody who had to grapple with the material realities. Like, is there a storm coming? What do I do? And we experience that as well. I'm always shocked by how humbling it is. I'm shocked each time, but how humbling it is for us little puny human beings to recognize that there's a weather event coming and we don't know what to do and if we're going to survive it. So still respecting what Nell just said about historicity, recognizing that our time is not their time, I think that has been kind of a bridge for people to see her differently, to recognize that Harriet Tubman, the book opens with her caught in a snowstorm, where she was actually in danger of her health and safety. She survived it, she says, through prayer, because she believes Christ was with her. But many of us know, I think, what it's like to be in a scary storm. And the spiritual dimension, too, that I emphasize in the book, there are many people who have a relationship with, if not a spiritual tradition, then even grappling with whether or not those traditions should be relevant to them in their lives. And so I think that makes her feel more accessible. She becomes somebody other than just the figure running through the woods. We can go inside her experience through these two themes.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else? Yes.
In the case of either Truth or Tubman, did you ever come across anything that they questioned that their God was a white man? That it just accept that?
So the question is, in both cases of Tubman and Truth, did they come across? Did you come, as historians, did you come across an idea of their picture of God? Is that right? Okay.
Mm-hmm. I have never come across Truth's picture of God as a white man or as a corporeal being, a spirit. She was a spiritualist too. So her God is not embodied in that way.
Similar kind of reaction to the question. I think that it is a fair question. Harriet Tubman and many other enslaved people developed an understanding of God in relationship to their lives on the ground. So she wasn't able to learn how to read or write due to at first, the laws of slavery, and then the priorities of her own life once she was free. So her access to Christianity was an oral access where she heard people, especially in her community, talking about their concepts of God. She didn't tell us what that meant, and we can't see, the picture of that unfolding. But I very much doubt that people in her community were saying, our God is a white man. I think that their emphasis would have been much more on our God is the one who led the Jewish people out of Egypt.
Yeah.
They would tell stories and talk about power and talk about the relationship and sources of strength, as opposed to describing a physical, like a personification of God, I think.
Yeah, I think also that certainly for Truth and the people around her, they were very distrustful. They didn't like established religion. They didn't like settled ministers. They didn't like churches. And I think that they were distant from the God of churches and seminaries, who was more likely to be embodied.
Mm-hmm. I want to add to that too. It just brought something to mind, which is Harriet Tubman. And she had dreams. She had dreams at night. She had seizures during the day from an awful brain injury that she got through the violence of an overseer. And she also had premonitions, things that she said that they were going to happen. And she said that her father also had the ability to know what was going to happen in the future. So some of the aspects of her spirituality don't line up exactly with the sense of what does the Bible say about who God is.
Interesting. One more question. Yes. Thank you for using the mic.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Looking around the room, there's not a lot of Black people here.
But there are some.
There are some. I would imagine in this crowd, there are a lot of allies. I myself am married to a beautiful Black man. I am proud stepmom to his 3 adult kids. But I'm just wondering about both of your perspectives about allyship and what that means. And, even at work, I'm on the leadership team of our ERG group, our employee resource group, who supports our Black employees as an ally. And I'm just curious to hear your perspective about allyship.
Yeah. You're still in the workforce.
I am. I do want to talk about the contemporary connections to that question, but my first thought went back to Tubman when you brought up allyship, and the way that my thinking needed to change as I was researching her. Because when she first escaped, she went to Philadelphia and she was going back to help members of her family escape kind of on her own. I mean, she did have contacts in Baltimore. She knew people still back in Maryland, in Dorchester County, who she was talking with to help family members get out. But she hadn't plugged into the Underground Railroad community in Philadelphia yet. Once she plugged into that community, she was able to basically multiply what she could accomplish, because she had people who were as devoted to the cause of freedom as she was, who were able to provide her with information, resources, contacts, and so on.
William Still.
Yes, absolutely. William Still, the black man in Philadelphia who worked for the Underground Railroad and the Anti-Slavery Society there, was a key contact of Tubman's. So once she was able to become ensconced in a network, she could multiply and compound this force that Nell was talking about earlier. So I think that's important. She didn't actually succeed alone. None of us succeeds alone, I think.
Yeah. I would say yes. We would not know of Sojourner Truth, and Sojourner Truth would not have been able to get her son back, who was trafficked. She would not have a network. She got her printer through the network of William Lloyd Garrison and the Liberator. So for Truth, for the public persona of Truth, as well as the mother and the person, allies, non-Black allies, were absolutely crucial. But once again, I don't want to generalize. There is not the ally for me. And there are some allies who will stab you in the back, and there's some allies who will save your life.
Yeah, I mean, I wish we had a different word, I guess, because the term ally has been used, for so long in a way that maybe flattens it. But I think of the people who Tubman was with as, they were people who were there with her. It wasn't as if she was doing the thing and they're going to ally with her from a space out here. It was that they were in this together. I don't know what the word is for that.
That's such a good point. No.
Okay, well, we're getting closer.
It was a community.
But yes.
It was a community.
Yes, it was a community. It was a network. We need to keep working on these words, you all.
Yeah.
We need
Okay.
a new word for ally.
Yeah.
Friendship, maybe, but not exactly. That gets to these questions or issues of trust, of reliability, of who can you count on.
Yeah.
And I feel like
And
I want
who
to.
has the power to help you?
That's right. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Tubman was really aware of what she needed. I don't think that I conveyed this. I mean, she knew that she needed material resources, she needed information, she needed people located in various locations to carry out these rescues. And it is a fair question, who is able to provide those things, and who can be counted on to keep a secret and also to provide those things? So right now, let me see. I'm not sure how to go about this, but I do want to share this, that I teach in the history department at Harvard, and I've been on that faculty for, I think this is my 7th year or so. My colleagues are all wonderful people, but I wouldn't say that it was the kind of place that you walked to and you felt like, wow, I'm surrounded by all the things we just said. Allies, friends, what did we say? Collaborators, whatever. All those words, right? It felt more like a place where people were very focused on their own projects in their own worlds, and wonderful projects they were and are. But when things started getting really difficult for us in our university, I felt like my colleagues made each other, let me back that up. My colleagues became visible to each other. They made the choice to become visible to each other and to say things that they had never said before. And I thought, wow, I actually didn't know that was a person who would have my back. Never knew. Wouldn't have guessed.
Yeah, good.
But knowing that now helps me feel like we can confront this kind of awful situation and probably worsening situation with renewed strength and renewed purpose.
Marvelous.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.